The dance hall at Bondi was thick with cigarette smoke and nervous laughter that summer evening in 1939. Margaret smoothed her floral dress and watched the young men in their best suits trying to work up the courage to ask for a dance. She was about to leave when a tall fellow with sandy hair and kind eyes approached her table. "Care for a dance, miss?" His voice carried a slight country drawl that made her smile. "I thought you'd never ask," she replied, taking his offered hand. Thomas Mackenzie had come down from a sheep station near Dubbo for work in the city. As they swayed to the slow melody, he told her about the endless skies out west, and she spoke of her job at the telephone exchange, connecting voices across the sprawling city. By the time the band packed up, they both knew something had shifted in their small worlds. Through the golden autumn of 1940, they met every weekend. Sunday picnics in the Botanic Gardens, Saturday matinees at the Pictures, long walks along the harbour where the bridge stretched across the water like a steel promise. Thomas would point to the ships coming and going and telling her about the places they might visit together someday. Maybe England or America, anywhere beyond the horizon. "After we're married," he'd say, squeezing her hand. But by Christmas, the war in Europe was no longer someone else's concern. The young men of Australia were enlisting, swept up in duty and adventure. Thomas held her close on New Year's Eve as fireworks burst over the harbour. "I have to go, Maggie," he whispered into her hair. "You know I do." She nodded, though her heart was breaking. She'd known this moment would come. They were married in February 1941, a small ceremony at St Mary's Cathedral, with Margaret in her mother's wedding dress and Thomas in his new army uniform. The reception was brief. His train was leaving for training camp the following week. "Wait for me," he said at Central Station, his kit bag slung over his shoulder. "Always," she promised, memorising every detail of his face. The letters came regularly at first. Training in Victoria, then deployment to North Africa, the Pacific campaigns. Margaret worked extra shifts at the telephone exchange, lived with Thomas's aunt in Paddington, and wrote to him every day. She told him about rationing and victory gardens, about the American soldiers who'd filled the city, about her job directing calls for families desperate for news of their sons. Then in late 1943, the letters stopped. For 18 months, Margaret heard nothing. Official word came that Thomas was missing in action somewhere in the Philippines. Missing, not dead. She clung to that distinction like a lifeline. She kept writing letters she couldn't send, kept his photograph on her dressing table, kept believing. The war ended in August 1945. Sydney exploded in celebration, strangers kissing in the streets, church bells ringing, ship horns blaring across the harbour. Margaret stood at Circular Quay watching the crowds, feeling hollow. Victory meant nothing without Thomas. She was sorting through his letters for the 100th time in October when her neighbour pounded on the door. "Maggie, there's a call for you at the post office." The voice on the crackling line was thin and hoarse, but undistinguishably his. Maggie, is that you?" "Tommy!" She could barely speak. "Where are you?" "I'm alive, love. I'm coming home. The ship docks Thursday morning." Thursday morning found Margaret at Circular Quay before dawn, wearing her best blue dress and the pearl earrings he'd given her for their first anniversary. The harbour was grey-green in the early light, and the October wind carried the salt smell of incoming tide. She wasn't alone. The wharf was crowded with women clutching photographs, children holding handmade signs, parents scanning the horizon. As the sun rose, a ship appeared around Bradley's Head, not large, but precious beyond measure. Margaret watched the gangway come down, her heart hammering as men in civilian clothes began to disembark. Some ran to waiting families. Others walked slowly as if still learning to trust solid ground. She searched every face, second-guessing herself. It had been 4 years. They'd both changed. Then she saw him. Thomas was thinner, his sandy hair now streaked with grey, and he moved with a careful deliberateness that spoke of old injuries. But when their eyes met across the crowd, his face lit up with the same smile that had asked her to dance all those years ago. They met halfway, not running, but walking steadily towards each other through the chaos of reunion. When he reached her, Thomas cupped her face in his hands, studying her as if memorizing her all over again. "Hello, Mrs. Mackenzie," he said softly. "Welcome home, Mr. Mackenzie." He kissed her then, right there on the wharf, with Sydney Harbour spreading blue and brilliant behind them, while seagulls called overhead and ship horns sang their own celebration. It tasted of salt and tears and promises kept. Later, much later, as they walked slowly through the domain towards their new beginning, Thomas stopped and looked back towards the harbour. "I used to dream about this view," he said, "every night for 4 years." Margaret took his hand, weathered now, but still the same hand that had led her onto that dance floor. "We're home," she said simply. And they were.